Hey there, ghosts and ghouls! How many of you like to camp? How many of you have heard strange noises in the woods? How many of you are smart and did not go to see what that was? Good, because you haven't gone insane or died yet. There are many creepypastas about this subject, but this is one in particular that I like. This one is The Smiling Girl by, I'm not quite sure, there is no name, it just says anonymous, so if you wrote it, please tell me. Hope you enjoy. I don't know what to do anymore. I'm so scared, and I can't trust anyone. I went camping about 3 weekends ago in the Huntsville National Forest in Texas. Me and 3 friends that came home for the weekend. They are all in college, and usually we all go together at least once a year, old friends from high school. For the camping trip, we plan to go backpacking deep in the forest, live off fish that we catch and animals that we can trap. We have been doing this for a while in Texas and in numerous places, Arizona, Colorado. If anyone is familiar with the Spanish Peaks, there, New Mexico. So we're pretty much used to anything you'd encounter out there. It was my turn to pick where we'd camp, so I chose Huntsville. More accurately, it's the Huntsville New Waverly. So we drive up there, park our car in the camping park spot, and start walking off into the forest. We had some laughs along the way, everyone catching up with each other's lives. Walked until it started to get dark, and we set up camp there and stopped. Everyone gathered wood to make a fire, and we set up our tents. And we do what we always do, try and scare each other with weird stories. Around this time, we started to smell something very faint. It was noticeable, but not overbearing. Couldn't put our finger on what it was, so we just carried on. Mike had to go piss, and he walked off in the forest. A second later, he came running back, piss all down his jeans, like he'd missed really badly. Immediately, we all cracked up and threw some jokes at him. Then we noticed he was white as snow and trying to catch his breath. He started screaming for us to follow him and ran off. We all get serious and go follow him. Not knowing what the problem was, we started to hear faint screaming and crying in the distance. In the direction we were running, it was pitch black, away from the camp, and Mike had the only flashlight. We left ours at the camp. He had his from his trip to go take a piss. So at this stage, we didn't have much choice but to follow the light, which was frantically pointing here and there in front of him. The screams got closer, and Mike started to slow down. We then noticed a ratty old cabin that looked like it was abandoned except for a faint light that we could see coming from the old mildew-covered windows. The crying was intense. Whoever it was couldn't breathe enough to let out a full yell. We all followed Mike up to the front door, and we could all hear crying from inside. As soon as he knocked on the door, it stopped. We all waited and had heard really heavy footsteps walking fast to the door. There was a giant slam against the door and the sound of a bolt unlocking. Then, nothing. We waited for a bit, knocking a few more times, but still, nothing happened. We walked around the house. There was no fucking way any of us were leaving each other's side, and noticed a window, which was a good way up. Alex took a deep breath and asked us to give him a boost so he could see inside. Me and Mike lifted him up to the window. We watched him brush away the dirt and webs from the window and place his face close to the window to try and see something. There was a quick beat, then suddenly he breathed in fast and let out a scream. Then he fell back from the window, screaming bloody murder the whole time. We all tried to calm him down, but he was hysterical. We went to him, but he started to shake and punch and kick, you name it, and then took off towards the camp. None of us wanted to be separated, so we all ran close behind him. We caught up to him and grabbed him, set him down. The fire was dying out, so I grabbed some nearby woods and we collected, adding to the fire. My hands were shaking. I had to do something. I went back to Alex, and we all tried to calm him down. He kept screaming, and he was breathing so hard that he eventually fainted. All of us are terrified now, and we all kept the fire high until sunrise. Periodically, Alex kept waking up screaming just like before. By sunrise, he was up and looking catatonic, just mumbling to himself and whimpering. Me and Mike decided to go look at the cabin. Now it was daylight. We searched where we thought it was. Exactly there was nothing. Nothing at all. The indistinct smell from last night had not gone into a very strong smell of something dead. Something stale. We headed back to the campsite. When we got there, we found Alex had chewed into the side of his face and swallowed so much blood that he was throwing up. John was at his back, and he looked like he was about to die from exhaustion. I guess we all looked that way. I just didn't notice until I saw his face. Alex said quickly that we need to leave now. We all started to pack up the tent. It started to rain really heavily. It was about noon and the sky started to grow really dark. Alex started to go into a panic. He went and grabbed a big stick and yelled at us to leave it and leave now, or he'd knock us out and drag us out of there himself. Mike started to yell at him and they started to fight. We broke it up and finished packing and then started to make our way back. After a little while, we arrived at a creek we had crossed the previous day, only it was flooded over and the water was moving too fast for us to cross it. Alex started to scream again, yelling at Mike to take his time packing up the tent when we could have gotten out of here. This went on for a while until we finally convinced Alex to calm down and just tell us what happened. He said as soon as he put his face to the glass, a face on the other side did the same thing and started to smile really big, had dark eyes and a dark mouth, which was much bigger than Alex's. As the smile got as large as it could, a giant shadow behind it swung something down and sliced its face off. The face was stuck to the window, and he said it started to laugh quietly as it slid down. Mike, still pissed off, and thought he would in a minute, began to get freaked out. Starting to argue with him again, we eventually started to follow the creek for a ways across. We then started to see toys floating in the creek. Really old toys. Old Barbie dolls and old dolls. Baby dolls. This wasn't like any old trash floating in the creek though. This was a lot of Barbies and a lot of baby dolls. One washed towards the side and Mark picked it up. It had some kind of voice chip that was dying and started to say some gurgled words we couldn't understand, followed by its sad excuse for laughter. Then it sounded like it was whispering. We thought the batteries must be dying, then threw it down. We kept going, and the sun was starting to set. Alex was freaking out more now and was whimpering, breathing heavily. We all started to see shadows moving behind the trees, something we all called BS on until we were seeing it. It was barely light out, and we stopped as we see the cabin from the night before in front of us. None of us knows what to think. Mike said, "This is bull. I'm going in there." Alex tried to stop him. We all do. All of us just wanting to go home. Mike says to us to fuck off, do our own thing. He doesn't care anymore. This is all bull. We start to hear hundreds of the same sort of baby dolls as before, laughing, whispering, and trying to sing. We start to move forward past the cabin, all of us, and keep pushing forward. We smelled something dead in the air, something stale, same something as before. We started to hear something crying and something screaming. We kept going. We eventually crossed the creek and left the woods. We get back to our vehicle and got in. It's pitch black and we drive. We are about to get on the 45 to Houston, but the road is under construction and can't be accessed. It points to a detour. As we head to the detour, it seems to be a small bumpy dirt road going into the woods. We then see a young girl come up to us. She looks like she was in trouble. Young and pretty, she approaches the passenger side door. She looks like she's really drugged up or beaten up. Alex doesn't roll down the window, nor does he open the window. She reaches for the handle and he immediately locks it. She puts her face to the window, starts to smile. Really big. We floor it. Alex starts to cry and scream, and we are all breathing heavily. Finally cut the street that takes us to the 45 and we take it the whole way. When we get back to the apartment, everyone doesn't know what to say, and we all break apart and go our separate ways. Mike messaged me later and says he's going to go back. I tried to convince him not to. All he does is say it was our own minds that were scaring us. I think he was just wants to prove to himself he wasn't scared. I can smell that stench everywhere now. I don't go out anymore. I just stay in and don't answer the door. Last week, everyone I met was acting really strange. People I knew for a long time and are total strangers. My own dad, when I went to his place to eat supper with him, he just watched me strangely. When I was sitting down, he didn't say a word the whole time. I kept asking him, what's wrong? He just slowly shook his head. When I was leaving to go home, I turned away. He had black eyes and an open mouth like he was in pain. When I started to walk back, he shut the door and bolted it. I stayed there, knocking and knocking, nothing. I called him. His phone was disconnected. I even called the police. Halfway through the questions they were asking me, to connection started to fade in, static. I could hear faint mumbling, singing and laughing. Mike has completely vanished. There is not even a record of him being alive. When I called Alex's house, they talked to me like I'm some salesman. They say they don't know an Alex and to please stop calling. The person who tells me this is Alex's mother. I can't get a hold of John. Someone knocked on my door. When I went to look, I saw a face completely covering the peephole and a giant smile staring at me. I called the cops again, and instead of it turning to static, they got really strange. Sir, are you affected by any drugs at the moment? No. Are you coming home anytime soon? Excuse me? Come home. And the phone call ended. My mail slot swings every now and then. Someone is sliding pieces of baby doll through it. I try to call people now, and all I can hear is static and baby doll noises and crying and screaming. My TV is busted, but when I go to piss, I can hear it on. I might be going insane. Whoever lives above me started to scream in pain and crying deeply recently. I hear giant footsteps from their apartment. I hear bangs and something's falling to the ground. From the neighborhood to the right of my apartment, I hear what sounds like babies that never get tended to. And then it sounds like the baby doll whose batteries were dying. My phone has been ringing now, and it's Alex telling me things in a language that I've never heard before, nor could even manage to repeat. I keep getting emails of pictures of black and small corporations. Now I can't even access my email. Someone's knocking at the door. Then they slam against it. I hear the bolts unlocking one by one, and I run to make sure the locks, all of them, are back, and sit down crying. What do I do? My electricity keeps dimming. My water sinks. Bath showers all smell like something's dead. I keep seeing shadows, or someone behind me raising something up in the air. I just can't take off to the other side of the apartment with my head against the wall. I have boarded my windows shut. Someone was throwing rocks through them. I never could see who. I have boarded my bedroom in. I hear crying and screaming in there now. And right now, while I'm typing this, I can see the reflection of the computer screen of some shadow behind me. So, my ghosts and ghouls, what you think of that story? I think we can all take our face off to that. Yeah, get a sense of humor. So, what you think of it? Leave me a comment. I really like this one. I think it's creepy as hell. And leave me a like and maybe subscribe. It would really help me out. This is Warlock Boo saying, hope to be spooking y'all later, and are you coming home soon? Bye. I found you.
No! No!